Hi, welcome to Arguing Art. My name's Adam Sterner, and this is Micah Luke.
How you doing?
Today we're going to tell you a little bit about arguing. Now looking at us here, you might think if we're going to start an argument, we might start yelling at each other, getting in each other's faces, kind of riling up feelings, temperament, that kind of thing. But that's not what arguing really is at all. In reality, an argument is based on a logical process called deductive reasoning.
Well, and before we get into that too, I think it's important to point out that the arguments that we're talking about is not, like you said, us yelling at each other. It's more about trying to find out the truth.
Yeah, I don't know who said it, but there's a great quote out there that philosophers are truth seekers, truth bearers.
Mm-hmm.
In this case, I guess we'd be truth seekers for art.
Yeah.
And that's really our process. We're trying to find the actual meaning and share it with you.
So, and it's not about who wins, who loses, because ultimately when we argue like that, we all win. And that's what we're going for. When we can determine the truth, everybody wins.
Everybody wins.
Yep.
So that you can help us out, we're going to explain to you a little bit about what an argument is. That way, when you come to the site, you don't start yelling at us and correcting our grammar in the forum, because there'll probably be a few mistakes here and there. The real point is to help us reach our actual conclusion.
That ain't no doubt.
Which is this deductive reasoning. You start with a premise or a statement, and you can have multiple statements, and the real goal is that you form a conclusion from them that follows from those statements.
So, when you've got, say, 2 or 3 premises, you have to get that conclusion out of that, right?
If you're going to have a successful deductive reasoning argument.
Assuming you're legit, that conclusion has to come out of those premises.
Yes,
okay.
In order to be a full argument. If you don't, there's all kinds of little pitfalls that we'll discuss in another video later. They're called fallacies, and there's other types of things that you might think are an argument, but actually aren't.
The name fallacies always makes me giggle, because from the art side, it makes me think of like phallic symbols.
Sure, yeah.
Phalluses. It just makes me think of philosophers running around with giant phalluses.
Wonder if there's any Giannis's. Haven't come across those yet, but maybe we'll create it here.
Yes.
So then we basically take this understanding of what an argument is, and something kind of tricky, cool happens in your brain where you can look at each of these individual premises, and in order to determine that the conclusion is actually true, your brain kind of goes through a process. You work through it, you make sure that each of these individual statements are true. And if that happens, each of those statements are true, you have what you would call a valid argument. And if your argument's valid, then you're on to the next step in making sure that the argument, the conclusion actually follows from those premises. And if you have that, it's called sound. So if you have a valid, sound argument where your conclusion follows directly from your premises, you have a valid, deductive, reasoned, logical argument.
Right.
And that's actually going to be really helpful for us, because as we break into explaining art and exploring that further, we're going to have to base it on arguing out specific facts.
So if you've got a couple premises and a conclusion, which makes up an agreement, say it's yours, I can reject any part of that, right?
Yes.
And that'll take the wind out of your whole sails.
You definitely could. That's actually called the counter argument. So you're talking to me, I present an argument, I give you multiple steps, it all seems to work perfectly, and you present a counter argument which reveals one of those premises to no longer be true. You've just debunked my argument and it no longer lasts. And that's kind of a fun exchange that you have in philosophy, determining those arguments. And there are some more specific terms for what the different type of debunking arguments are. Again, with the fallacies.
Yep. Which we're going to get into, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Eventually.
Yep.
Eventually.
We'll bring that up in another podcast, another video cast, another article on our website. Did you have any other questions about arguing?
I think we got the deductive reasoning, which is that your premises, or that your conclusion has to come out of your premises.
Mhm.
We know what a premise is. We know what a conclusion is,
Mhm.
and we know that together makes an argument. Which, if it's legit, then it's truthful. If the premises are legit, then it's sound.
Mhm.
And if the conclusion has to come out of those premises, then it's valid.
Yes. And you need both parts in order to have a solid argument.
And then checking all that stuff, that's called proofing, right?
Yes, it is called proofing.
Okay.
And that's kind of the process of the counter argument. That's the tricky thing you do in your brain. You can do it with another person, but you kind of have the auto process built in to self-examine what you're discussing and proof your own work.
Yeah.
You build your own counter arguments. Any other?
I think that's about it.
Okay. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video cast. If you want more information, you can stay tuned and find more videos that we create,
Yep.
or you can visit us at arguingart.com and join in the conversation. We'd really like your comments, your feedback, anything you'd like to see, anything you'd like to do.
Absolutely. Let
hit
us
us
know. We'll be covering all sorts of art and all sorts of art philosophy.
Mhm.
And really, this is going to be driven by you guys. So,
Yep, we're trying to demystify the whole process of
Yes.
art, bring it down to really the elements that it are, or that make it up.
yeah.
Something that everyone can understand, because art is really something for everyone. It's not this mystical thing on high like some people make it out to be. So, thank you for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time.